This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. The Browns' former running back coach, Stump Mitchell, was a beloved figure in Cleveland, and he gave a farewell interview to friend of the show, Cam Justice. I talked to her, made sure it was okay to bring this interview up and talk about it. One of the things I want to make sure everybody does is I'm going to give my takes on what happens in this interview. But if you want to make your own mind up, if you want to get your own opinion about what's happening, please, I'll put the link in the description. Go to News 5 Cleveland's YouTube page. You see the title right here and watch the full 11 and 38 second video yourself to make up your own mind. I'm just giving my takeaways on this based on everything that I understand. Some things I think can be easily misconstrued given how some of these dynamics work behind the scenes, and some of the things that I do find a little bit interesting and encouraging or discouraging about how Stump feels about this whole process. But that all being said, let's remember to be civil. I have respect for Stump. We got respect for Cam. Cam's on this show all the time. So we're going to keep it civil in the comment section and respectful for sure. So
had big names in your running back room. Nick Chubb highlighting them.
Yeah, all those guys been fantastic. I really believe I got an opportunity to get the most out of everybody except for Kareem so far. I think Kareem has a lot to offer, but I think what he needs to do is dedicate himself to getting all that he can get and don't settle for being who he's been in the past. And I think he'll be one hell of a player.
Okay, so I think the first thing I noticed and the first thing a lot of people noticed was that, like, it felt like at times in this interview that Stump was either being really harsh or really coming for Kareem Hunt. And I will admit, first watch, it's kind of weird, right? How he continues to talk about Kareem Hunt in this. I think Stump is being a coach here. Like, if I have to be charitable and try to see this from every angle, Stump is being a coach here, right? And I do know that the relationship with Stump and Kareem is just kind of like this, and I don't think it's a negative. I think Stump expects a lot from Kareem Hunt. This is not the first time I've heard Stump say this, right? I remember when I was in camp 2 years ago, Stump was talking about, man, Kareem Hunt could lead the league in rushing if he just do these things I'm telling him to do, right? There's been that tug and pull with, hey, man, Kareem, I want you to do this. I think the world of you. I think you can be this guy, but you just ain't doing these things. And I think that's a eternal kind of battle that Kareem and Stump Mitchell have. I don't think that the two have bad blood, right? I think some people started writing stuff and making it seem like Kareem Hunt and Stump Mitchell have bad blood. It sounds to me like Stump, he's doing some tough love stuff, which, you know, it's not necessarily the norm these days, but he's just like, hey, I think Kareem can do all of this, but man, I think Kareem needs to push himself to be a little bit more difficult. That's just brutal honesty, or at least his perspective of Kareem. He feels like he's being brutally honest. It could come off as harsh and callous at times, but I got news for you. This is just a little taste of what these players hear behind the scenes. Like, it's not all hunky-dory, hey, man, you're going to fix it next time. Like, and it's not all screamy, shouty, I'm going to yell at you and cuss you out. You know, I think we kind of just assume that it works like that. But a lot of coaching is, I don't think you're good at this. I don't think you're good at this because of this. And this is what you need to do to fix it, because this is what you can become. And I think that's what Stump is doing with Kareem. It's coaching. Usually coaches have more of a filter when they talk to the media to not let some of the real stuff like come out, where it's like they're kind of just he's talking about Kareem, how he would talk to Kareem in the privacy of a running back room, but he's doing it on an interview, so it feels a little weird. But I don't think there is bad blood. Now we're gonna talk about this again because he does continue to bring up Kareem in his interview, but we'll continue to talk about this. There's some other points that I wanted to hit from this video as well.
I know it's difficult, but I mean, were you surprised that this is the course that's happened and you're not with the team right now?
I guess I was more surprised with TC and AVP because they came here with Kevin than I was with myself. So that's heartbreaking because those guys, they worked tremendously hard. I thought AVP was unbelievable OC, and it's the first time David has made it to the Pro Bowl, in his 7-year career. So TC definitely got all he could from that group.
You could definitely tell that he feels like TC got a little bit of the short stick there. Like, that's my takeaway from it, at least. Like, it's just a viewer. Like, it feels like he feels like TC got the short stick. He thinks that he did a good job, but he just didn't roll his way. And, sometimes it's like that, man. Every job, it could be like that. You could do everything right, but where that organization is going is not with you, and it is what it is, and you just got to keep rolling with it, man. It's rough out here. It really is.
Do you think that there's more coaching for you?
It's a possibility. It depends on who get head jobs or maybe offensive coordinator jobs. But if it is, fine. If it's not, that's cool too.
Where do you see the state of this running backs room?
I think the running backs room is going to be fine. Andrew Berry, I think they do a great job of bringing guys in. Maybe not some that I wanted, but it is what it is. They brought in guys who were able to.
Okay, so that's something I do have to analyze, right? We're going to play that again, and that's an interesting response, right?
So maybe not a great job of bringing guys in. Maybe not some that I wanted, but it is what it is.
So Andrew's done a great job of bringing guys in. Maybe not some of the guys that I wanted. Interesting quote there. We all know that the Browns, they stuck with Pierre Strong. They stuck with Jerome Ford. They stuck with some of these guys when there were some names available on some practice squads, Dalvin Cook, all of these other dudes. They continued to stick with these guys that they had on the roster. And I don't know if this is him expressing frustration over who the running backs are on the roster, or if this is him expressing frustration about the running backs that they did not get. Because I do think that those two things are distinctly different, but it's clear to me he was not happy with. I don't think he felt great about that running back room, if I'm reading the tea leaves, outside of Nick Chubb, of course. Like, I don't know. He hasn't really said much, and I don't think he really says much about Jerome Ford in this interview. He does express areas in which he wishes Kareem Hunt would improve in, some of them on the field, some of them not, right? And he also expressed right here that, hey, the running back room was, maybe it wasn't what I wanted. And look, maybe he's just saying that to say that, because sometimes you do just say these things. But I do think it's worth noting here, like, hey, like, he stopped himself and started to think real carefully about what he was saying when he said that. Like, it's not like he was just yapping. He stopped himself and very deliberately kind of got out what he got out there. And that's interesting, right? Like, again, you look for reasons why they might have moved on. Maybe there was a little bit of tension here between Stump and some parts of the organization. Maybe there were some players who had some, like, there could have been a number of reasons why it might have just been time, right? And sometimes it's just time. right? It's nobody's fault, but it's just time, right? Like you've been around long enough. It's time. It's time for both of us to do different things, right? Everybody can't work everywhere forever.
Want it, but it is what it is. They brought in guys who were able to get the job done, and that was my job to make sure they get the job done regardless of who they brought in.
And that's important to note that he felt like they got the job done. So maybe he did feel like the room was good, fine enough. And he did say that the room's going to be fine next year. But, you know, just some things in there make me not the most confident that that's what he feels.
In their roles and then in different roles. For you, what do you hope the impact that you left on that organization, on that room, will be?
Well, the thing that I couldn't do while I was there is get the best out of Kareem. If they bring him back, I hope the next coach will be able to get the best out of Kareem. As a coach, all you want to do is to make a player better, but I wasn't able to get him to not be the last guy in meetings, not to be out at practice on time. Kareem's a hell of a player, but this is a team game, you know. And I tried to use every avenue that I could with Jacoby Brissett, also Deshaun, those guys talking to him. But timing in this business is everything. During the spring, we had a phenomenal spring with Marquise.
Okay, we're going to get into with him talking about the spring, but I thought that was a very, 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 very interesting thing. Again, I'm not trying to be super salacious and grab some headlines here, but it does feel like to me that Stump is kind of self-evaluating here, right? Like, I think when you're Stump Mitchell and you get fired, and I can only assume, because if I lost the job, I would be self-evaluating too, right? What did I do wrong? Because it's real easy to talk about what everybody else did wrong, right? But you're never going to get better and make yourself undeniable if you keep focusing on everybody else. You got to be like, okay, I got to self-evaluate. I might not think I got a fair end of the stick here, but what did I not do well? And it seems like in Stump's self-evaluation, he has landed on Kareem Hunt as the one player he feels like he has not done his best work with, right? He tried to do everything, but he just could not figure out how to get to Kareem Hunt in a way that he felt like was going to produce the results that he thought that Kareem Hunt could get. Now, if you think Kareem Hunt is more capable than what he was given this year, I don't know. That wasn't really like a topic of conversation amongst Browns fans, to be honest with you. Nobody was really that disappointed with Kareem Hunt, but we're not there at practice, right? We're not seeing who's showing up on time. We're not seeing who's there at meetings, who's first man in, last man out. We're not seeing who's putting in that work effort. And he feels like he never was able to connect with Kareem Hunt and get Kareem Hunt to put in that level of work ethic that he felt like was necessary for Kareem Hunt to take himself to that next level. And he feels like it was a failure on Stump's part, his part, that he could not get that out of Kareem. Now, you can write that quote up and write what he said and make it seem like he's just straight up trying to dog Kareem Hunt. I really don't think that that was his intention, because when you listen to this in context, it feels like a self-evaluation. He is saying, I did not communicate with him. I did try to get Deshaun Watson to talk to him. I did try to get Jacoby Brissett to talk to him, but I just couldn't figure it out. And you can hear that and think that he's throwing Kareem under the bus. I felt like he was throwing himself under the bus. He probably was a bit more candid than he needed to be, right? Like, just naming Kareem Hunt made it something where people are going to jump on and make it seem like he's throwing somebody under the bus. And I don't know if he communicated that point effectively enough to avoid that misinterpretation. Like if that was what I was attempting to communicate, like that I feel like I have felt it, I would have communicated it differently, me personally. But that's how Stump chose to communicate it. It's going to be interpreted how it's interpreted, but I don't think his intention behind it was to outright be like throw Kareem Hunt under the bus. I don't think he's saying I got fired because Kareem Hunt is lazy. I think that's what a lot of people are trying to take away from this. I think he's saying, hey, I hit a wall with guys on this team, right? Maybe they weren't the guys that I wanted, but they were the guys there to get the job done with. And in some ways, I hit a wall. I hit these walls with these players. And Kareem Hunt is the biggest example he can think of a player he hit a wall with. And he keeps coming back to that. And I think that's why it sounds like he's throwing him under the bus. I don't believe that was his intention. Sometimes your intention only matters as far as the intention goes, right? So I'm just stating what I believe his intention to be. I don't think he was trying to throw Kareem Hunt under the bus. But if I'm Kareem Hunt and I hear this, I don't blame him if he feels like he was thrown under the bus as well, because this isn't usually like, this is stuff you say in the meeting room, and you don't have to worry about this kind of like interpretation of it. But when you say this thing publicly, it does leave it open to a lot of different interpretations. And that does make it a bit more problematic, even if you weren't intending for that to be the case. So that's my whole take on all the Kareem stuff. Now, he does say some interesting stuff about Deshaun and Kevin as this interview goes forward.
And Deshaun, unfortunately, Marquise had the blood clots and stuff during the summer and wasn't able to practice, but man, was spring dynamic. It was so awesome to see the connection on the deep balls and stuff. And unfortunately, that didn't happen.
You mentioned him, and I know you don't work directly with him, but you work with him a lot. Deshaun Watson is looking to come back from that shoulder injury, and there's question marks on what he's going to look like. Can he put a full season together with what you've seen of him and how he's been able to work in that running backs room and how that offense wants to operate? Where do you see the future with Deshaun Watson on the Cleveland Browns?
Well, the future with Deshaun Watson should be similar to Joe. Deshaun is a passer. Okay, first and foremost, he's a passer. The system, and Kevin felt real comfortable calling plays for Joe because Kevin's a hell of a play caller. You know, people constantly ask the question, should Kevin give up play calling? I think he's a hell of a play caller. I mean, he don't drop balls, he don't fumble, he don't throw interceptions. He studies his ass off in terms of knowing the situation, knowing the time to call certain plays. I think that's one thing he definitely does not need to do. I mean, you take him back to Kirk Cousins. That's kind of the mindset he had.
Okay, again, 100% does not have to defend Kevin Stefanski as a play caller, right? Like, he does not work for the Browns. Kevin just got rid of him, fired him. He does not have to defend Kevin Stefanski as a play caller. So I feel like he means this, right? Like, this isn't like he's on the staff and it's a weekly press conference and he's just saying this stuff to say it, like, because you're expected to say it. No, he went out on a limb here for two people, Kevin Stefanski and Deshaun Watson. It was interesting what he said about Deshaun Watson. We're going to get to that in a second. But yeah, with the Kevin Stefanski stuff, he believes that Kevin is an unbelievable play caller. Hey, which to some of you guys might be a shock, because not only do people think that Kevin's a terrible play caller, I don't have that opinion, but a lot of people do think that Kevin's not a good play caller. But a lot of people think he's not a good play caller in particular because they feel like he doesn't run the ball enough. But here you have the guy who's been the running back coach for Kevin Stefanski his entire run here saying, no, that man's a genius. Like, he's an excellent play caller. He doesn't ever need to get rid of the reins there as a play caller. Now, what he said about Deshaun, to me, like as I try to put these pieces together on why these things happen, just from the outside looking in, it starts to make more and more sense what was going on and why certain people got let go. Remember, my overall theory is that the Browns are trying to expand their comfort zone, both running the football and throwing the football. And in order to expand the comfort zone, you gotta find people who aren't as comfortable with what you were doing. Got to get rid of some of those guys and bring in people who are comfortable doing something else so you can add those comforts to your comfort zone, right? If you want to expand it, you can't do it while everybody still kind of want to do that old thing. That's why the Browns would do RPOs with Deshaun Watson and immediately take him away because they weren't comfortable with him. You have to have basically, if you want to expand your comfort zone as an offensive coach, you gotta shake up your staff a little bit, right? And this is part of it. And you notice what Stump Mitchell said here. He's advocating for Deshaun Watson to be in that same system in the same exact way that Joe Flacco was in that system, right? That's what he's arguing for. And it makes me wonder, like, was this the opinion that he had? We know that because he said it, but then you ask, hey, was this what Alex Van Pelt thought too? Like, was there just a disagreement on what was the best way to use Deshaun Watson? Was that a constant tug and pull amongst the staff all year where it's like, hey, well, the last 2 years was like, hey, we feel like Watson is a passer first. He's an accurate thrower. He's a good processor. He just has to learn and use this system that Kevin knows, the West Coast offense, and just plug and play like he's Joe Flacco. And maybe there are other people like, no, Deshaun has not played like that in the NFL. He needs a different way. We need to get comfortable doing some of this other stuff. Remember, Drew Petzing kind of just left unceremoniously after being the quarterback's coach to become the offensive coordinator for the Arizona Cardinals. And you saw how different that offense looked than a Kevin Stefanski offense for the Cardinals this year, right? It was a lot out of shotgun. It was a lot of this gun run stuff, like a lot of the stuff that the Browns wanted to add. I wonder how long that tug and pull has been happening, because when you have somebody, a veteran and well-respected coach, come out and say, I think that Deshaun should be used like this, but he's also one of the coaches that they let go, it makes me think, oh, they're going in a different direction. Maybe Alex Van Pelt thought that this was how we should use Deshaun. And Kevin's having second thoughts on that and thinking we need to probably do some things he's more comfortable with. Or maybe Deshaun is saying that, right? Like, I don't know, but it seems like there was a bit of a friction. I don't want to say friction's too saucy of a word. I think there was a bit of a disagreement on what Deshaun's strengths would be and what offense would suit Deshaun Watson well. It's clear to me that everybody in that coaching staff has a high opinion of Deshaun Watson. I know fans may not have a high opinion of Deshaun Watson. I know the media definitely does not have a high opinion of Deshaun Watson as a football player. Like, I'm just talking about as a football player. As a person, think whatever you want about him. I don't care. But as a football player, right, I don't think that the people in that building have a low opinion of him. I think that they all think highly, from his teammates to his coaches, everybody. They're all really excited to get him back. I think it was more of a disagreement on what he can do, like where that next step should be. I do agree that you can't just go back to the Texans stuff with Deshaun Watson. You do have to evolve what Deshaun Watson was doing in 2020 if you want him to be remotely as good as he was in 2020 and 2024, right? Like, you have to evolve it. You can't just say, hey, we're going to run some shit from 4 years ago and just call it a day. The league's changed. 4 years is a long time in the NFL. But I do think that you could take some from here, add some wrinkles from there, advance things from here, get some new ideas. That's why Tommy Rees is here. That's why Deuce Staley is in here. That's why they're getting new blood, new thoughts, new things involved in this offense in order to evolve it, in order to advance Deshaun, in order to get something that fits around him and is also not just exactly what he used to do in Houston. So, you know, that to me was an interesting tug and pull that he brought up about how Deshaun should be used, because I agree with him. I think Deshaun is a much better quarterback when he's throwing the ball in the pocket. Where I disagree with him is that I think Deshaun Watson is a much better quarterback when he's able to make decisions on his own time, not when he's forced to make decisions in the timing of the offense. Deshaun is a guy who makes decisions on his own time, like CJ, like Joe Burrow, like Pat Mahomes, where you want to just give them the time that they need, because if they see it, they can get it, they could kill you, right? And I think that that's something that they realized needed to change. Like having Deshaun and telling Deshaun to just get rid of it on your third drop and just throw it blind, that's just not a recipe for success, because that's not how he's been good at quarterback ever. He's been somebody who can process really well and throw the ball very accurate. Remember what I was saying with CJ Stroud? It's a similar concept. CJ Stroud gets back there, and if he sees it, it's done. He can throw it with anticipation. He's accurate. Same thing for Deshaun Watson. You look at a lot of Deshaun Watson 2020, 2019 stuff. If he sees it, it's over with. He could process, throw it real quick. That's what he's going to do. So I think there was a disagreement there on exactly what the Browns needed to do with Deshaun Watson. If Stump Mitchell was on the side of, we just going to plug Deshaun Watson into this West Coast offense, hey, man, I understand why you had to move on despite the fact that he's a respected coach. But because I simply don't buy that that's a good idea.
When he had Joe, that's who Deshaun is. I mean, Deshaun is a runner, but he's a runner by nature. We don't have to create runs for him. Of course, special situations, 30 zones or whatever you can do, but Deshaun is a passer. So Kevin, if his game plan is like it was with Joe, we'll be just fine, or the Browns will be just fine.
You're always.
Yeah. So the more I hear, the more the Browns make moves, the more this makes sense to me. And I think it's all about viewing this in the proper lens. They're trying to expand their comfort zone on offense. And it seems like Stump was very comfortable doing that old thing. We know that Alex Van Pelt was very comfortable doing that old thing, right? And that old thing was working for the Browns for a little bit. But I think that Kevin came to a realization, or it made this decision, whether it be on his own or not. And I do believe it was Kevin's decision to make, that the offense, it would stand to evolve. I think it would stand and improve to evolve. And we cannot put Deshaun Watson and plug him in and tell him to be Joe Flacco and think that things are going to be fine dandy, because this is not how. Like, I on one hand, I get what Stump's saying. I think Deshaun is a much better thrower at the football right now than he is a game changer with his legs. Absolutely. I agree with that. I've said that multiple times on film breakdowns. When Deshaun stays in the pocket, when he stays tall in the pocket, when instead of rolling out right or left, he steps up, he's so much better. And he's so much more dangerous. He's a better quarterback like that. I know people fall in love with the playmaking plays that he could do, and he's rolling out and he throws his ball downfield, and that's all fun. And he's going to have room to do that. The Browns make a deep playoff run, and that's going to become important. But when we're talking about play to play consistency stuff, he's such a better quarterback when he's committed to just causing havoc in that pocket, because he's a dangerous thrower at that football. He really is. And I think for him to hit his next wind as a player, because it's obvious to me his first win is done. He needs to hit his second win or he's done, right? Like this year, he needs to hit his second win. In order for him to hit that, I think he needs to realize that. But I also don't think that means that he wins in the pocket like Joe Flacco does. Joe Flacco wins by being on time, getting the ball out quickly. Deshaun Watson, I think he wins in the pocket by processing and just pure arm talent. And I think that's a little bit different than Joe Flacco. So that's why we'll disagree. And I think that's why I think the changes needed to be made, man. Guys were comfortable doing one thing. You want to change that. You got to change the comfort. You got to change the people. So I think that's why the Browns made the move. The more stuff comes out, the more it makes sense. Shout out to Cam for this interview. Make sure you go to News 5 and watch the entire interview and get everything in context. Don't let somebody give you a clip or a quote here or there and make you furious at one party or another. Get the whole story. It's available for free on YouTube. It's very accessible. The link's in the description. But thank y'all. Y'all have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.